And good evening, everybody. Hope you are well, wet, cold on this typical weird old winter Sydney day when it starts looking sunny. You think maybe the forecast is going to collapse like the Titanic. And then suddenly it all just kicks into gear, but it comes from different directions. And it's just that sort of fabulous time of the year when no one knows what the hell's going on, especially models, but we just all just do a bit of nowcasting. And we hopefully the sound is lovely and clear tonight. The video is working fine, and you are all warm, dry, and down because it's work tomorrow. No, I'm just joking. Don't want you down, but we all know work tomorrow. Anyway, let's pop into it. There's not a lot happening, but there's enough happening to be talking about. So let's go. Let's have a chat about where and when. Let's go and see what's going on exactly. And we're going to turn, first of all, and have a look at the radar. You can see the current radar here, thanks to the new Met Center weather data thingy bobby. You can see here, looking good. Plenty of fall streaming in. And I think the thing that this is the 6 hours 9 and 3 link. You can see actually the radar do a couple of bit of interesting pivots today. First of all, we had the stuff this morning coming from the sort of the southeast. We had those upper showers coming in from the north. And then suddenly at around, I don't know, it was probably about, if I can just pause it here for you and we'll go back, probably around 10:30ish, 11ish. We saw a real subtle shift in the steering direction from sort of southeast, sort of east, to more of an east and then an east-northeast, and a gradual swing to the northeast. And that is the sign that this system, the upper trough and the upper low that's sort of been promised for a couple of days, actually has moved close to the coast. It's very weak, but what it is doing is actually enhancing activity, which is great. And finally, we're seeing much deserved showers. And the better thing is that there's been some quite good falls, actually. We did flag this morning that we sort of like, I mean, my model this morning did say 1 to 25 mils, and then I just sort of backed off and said 1 to 15, given that it's sort of been exaggerated the last few days. And but we did flag that was going to be thunder today, and there was thunder, and there's been reports of small hail down in the Shire as well, down at Cronulla apparently this afternoon. And I actually heard thunder personally myself. It was only one, I think one rumble, maybe two at most. But yeah, still counts as a storm. And that just goes to show just the usefulness of a very cold upper air over the warmer Tasman Sea. And so what happens is this low flung off to the east, and as it did, it gave enough oomph for these stream showers coming in from the east and on the edge of this ridge, as the ridge, a high pressure system behind this system, as it clears out, starts to build before the next system sort of pushes through. And it's just enough to catch enough moisture, dragged up into the sky because of increased instability in lapse rates because of the colder air above. And of course, the colder air above increases the temperature differential between the surface and, of course, the air to rise a bit more efficiently. And, of course, there's a bit more moisture around. Voila, we had some activity. Very, very localized, but we got some, which is great. So June ending off with a sparkiness of goodness. Some great falls though. I'm going to pause the video here right now. And we'll look at the static radar accumulation in a minute, but some really great falls, especially around when I was like, it bucketed down here earlier, probably from around, I think it was about sort of 1-ish onwards, but yeah, it was actually very pleasant and cold, mind you. But you can see, unfortunately, the sort of main players, the west and northwest, sort of missed out, and this is not unusual in this sort of kinking of this stream flows from the southeast to the northeast. Southeast, of course, the basin is set up, topography is much better to sort of collect and catch these showers as they move in. But as it starts swinging around to that northeast, again, the topography is our worst enemy because it sort of slides it down through the coastal areas, which we can see, but the sort of in the western areas, even the middle, the sort of central areas, sort of from Hornsby west, so that line down Hornsby down to Liverpool west, really don't do very well out of this. The south tend to do all right too because they tend to catch these streamers as they sort of slide into the Illawarra. So they're not so bad, and they don't miss out as much. But the Blue Mountains and that sort of the erased escarpment around the Gosford area tend to throw a bit of a rain shadow over those poor buggers in the west. But there's still some falls out there, so be thankful. But yeah, look at these falls in the east. 36 mils down at, I think that's Penshurst or Alloa or something like that. I think it's more Penshurst, actually, pretty Penshurst Bowling Club, if I remember off the top of my head. And then across the 30 mils of the airport, and the airport's done pretty well, actually. Obbs Hill has been the poorer cousin, which is really unusual, actually, for winter per se, because normally Obbs Hill is probably that and Terry Hills are probably the leading gauges when it comes to winter rainfall. And it's really sort of been the poorer cousin. And of course, up in the northern beaches did pretty good too. You can see there 10 to sort of 30 mils. Nice little falls. Not bad altogether, actually. And let's have a look at, we'll look at the temperatures now. We'll stick the temperature overlays. And if I can actually get it, I don't think it's actually on here. I think they pulled it up. There it is, observations. I'm going blind. We better turn the rainfall up because otherwise it's going to be more cluttered than my brain. And we'll take it back. The temperatures they were much pretty better this morning in that patches of sun. But, once that activity starts moving, you can see here Richmond got up to 18 today very nicely. Penrith didn't fare so well. It did actually get some showers early, and that persistent cloud, was enough to block the sun. I think got up to 17, sort of peaked this afternoon, as you can see there. But Richmond definitely stand out in 18, and obviously, and in fact, I think might even got to, no, that's the wind direction. I think it got 18 was the max I saw there. And it, obviously, the bit of rain shadow, a bit more sun than anybody else, 7, but the coast stayed pretty chilly all day, and it was pretty frigid, and I would ignore, again, anything that comes out of the OBS air fry hill. Just ridiculous, ludicrous, stupid, and unscientific. But yeah, there's my rant for today. You can put that one down, mark off your bingo card. The nerds are having a rant. Quite effective at that. But yeah, and that otherwise, not surprising with a thick cloud around, especially from that sort of late morning, early afternoon when that stuff started to organise. Temperatures did not do anything other than just stay hidden inside like the rest of us. It was chilly, but nice though. And in fact, it was that different sort of chilly because you can tell there's that sort of maritime vibe that sort of spicing up the air. So it wasn't that bone chilling cold that was yesterday. I mean, last night it was cold, and I looked at the temperatures and it was like 10 to 11. Like normally 10 to 11, when there's a maritime sort of air mass, isn't that cold? Well, sorry, it doesn't feel that cold. Probably in the west it does because it's obviously clear skies. On the coast, the sea does moderate that, but it felt cold. And in fact, the last few nights it felt cold. I actually had to put the organ donation blanket on last night just to keep warm for a little bit. It was chilly, chilly. And then around, I'm not sure anybody else on the coast has this sort of same phenomena, but then around sort of 3 to 4 a.m. ish, obviously when the maritime sort of the southeasterly showers back off and sort of things sort of ease up a bit, it does get a little bit milder. I'm not saying it's going to be warm, and I'm definitely not going to say it's mild as in that, but it just like you can just feel it, just that little that edge of the coldness come off the air, which is obviously very disappointing because we love a frosty sort of chilly night. But yeah, that's probably the penalty for living within 74 kilometers of the coast, I guess. Oh, that's about it. Let's have a look. The accumulated rainfall shows those figures we just saw on the radar itself, but it gives it a bit of a smooth picture, and it hasn't got the clutter with the observations, so you get to see a much better picture, and you can see, really, if you're under one of these bands, you did pretty well. And this is since 9 a.m. this morning, so some really good showers, but really quite indicative of that those wind stress streaming showers, and quite nicely you can see areas not far away missed out totally, and then 5 kilometers to either side picked up 10, 15, 20 mils. And you can see this area around the airport, Botany Bay here, which is not unusual in the northeasterlies, in that so you do have that sort of the CBD and the eastern suburbs sort of block this stuff, but today just paid off, and a nice little sort of streams pushing in. And there's probably actually a bit of a convergence between a weak southerly flow actually and this sort of ridge building. I think that's pretty what really contributed to the decent sort of shower state, and also that upper. So there were sort of three things actually converging and actually working in our favour for once instead of working against us. So a bit of a weak southerly sort of pushing in, this ridge developing, so there was sort of east and northeast, bit more of a milder moisture. I wouldn't say warmer, but a milder moisture coming out of that direction off the Tasman, and then the upper attempt of a low trough, of course, with the cooler temps. This moisture being sucked up, bang, and voila, we can see like a great patch here of 15 to 25 mils, some darker stuff of 30 mils around the airport through to the eastern burbs. And of course, down the Shire here, some pretty good stuff here, really, back of the the Cronulla Peninsula. I'm not sure what it's even officially called. I just call it the Continental Peninsula. And of course, you got into the back of the Shire itself, Sutherland and up through Menai and Engadine, that sort of stuff as well. Really like in the back of the Warren, which is obviously good too, maintains those moisture. Although I think that side may flow into the Georges and away from the Warren. I'm not sure. It's really on the border there. But again, some really, I said, you can see some really great falls. I'm just going to actually zoom in a bit further for you so you can see it. It's actually pinned down right now, just letting you know what's going on. I can just hear in the background, like just hammering away. It's lovely. You can see here, like some really good falls. That's you're talking, 50 to 70 mils in those reds. You can see here. And it was heavy in some areas, and that's pretty up around. That looks to be around sort of Waterfall, Engadine, so the back area there. So that's sort of a bit of a raised escarpment again, as as that sort of escarpment raises up to be the back of the Illawarra escarpment here. No doubt that enhanced any sort of stream showers pouring in, sort of lifted it a bit higher, helped it dump it. But you can see really anywhere from again Botany Bay through to the back of what are these weird junkies? I think it's supposed to be like the back of the St. George's River there, but I'm not sure that the mapping of the radar there is done very well. But you can see basically that around here, obviously Sylvania, and you've got sort of Tarrant Point, and so that's that Colonel. Sylvania and Tarrant Point sort of in here, around here. Back of the Cronulla Peninsula there, and you could, of course, where the Sharks NRL team are there. The beach there, Cronulla down here. And of course, Watermelon, that's the stuff. Oh, actually, that's pretty more Miranda. Actually, looking at that now, that's pretty close to Miranda. Actually, that sort of heavy falls. So if you're in Miranda and you've got that sort of falls, let us know. But yeah, good stuff. Welcome stuff. And again, as I said, it hammered down here for parts, and I heard thunder. So happy with that. Happy with that. Let's have a look at the week that was, and we're going to see obviously what the week that was. Let's pop into that now. This is obviously for the chapters. Thank you, Mr. Chapter. Okay, so this is the 7 days to 9 a.m. this morning. This is the accumulator radar, of course. And you can see a couple of features. First of all, ignore this sort of line here. It doesn't mean it just stopped raining. That is actually one of the artifacts from Terry Hill's radar. I think there's a tree or something. There's a hill or something that blocks the beam going out there. There's something actually that blocks the beam, and you can see how the dramatic effect it does have. But generally speaking, you can see the sort of multiple streamy showers, the lines of the sort of the effects. And there's actually a very interesting sort of picture, if you can pick this up here, and it should be big enough for your screens. There's actually two sort of pictures here. You can see this sort of lines coming down sort of like a northwest southeast sort of banding, which is the earlier in the week stuff. And then you can see this southeasterly stuff sort of meshing underneath it and feeding into this as well. And that was the second half of the week stuff. So, that's I love that this sort of the nuance of this and the granularity of this radar picture. You can actually see those patterns sort of overlaying each other, which is quite good. And you can see here again the effects of that escarpment through the Royal National Park and down into the northern Illawarra there. Just the incredible lifting mechanism it does to that moist areas that it hits that and just bumps up even just a few hundred meters. I think actually the peak of the escarpment around there, I think, is around 700 something meters. I think Mount Keir or Mount Kembla, there's probably one of the tallest, and they've actually had recorded snow on those hills. Not really mountains, are they? Many eons ago. But yeah, and that's obviously when the air is moist enough and it's pushed up and made force to rise. And of course, it's assisted by that upper system you can get these incredible falls out of it. So, in 7 days, you're looking at 100 to 150 mils in some of those places along there and through the back end of the Royal National Park here. And you can even see across into portions of sort of southern southeast Sydney as well. Some pretty good falls, and even out to Chester Hill, out Liverpool way. Good to see, a good range of 20 to 40 mils right for that area. And I happened to sort of call out Lucas Heights the other day too, because it seems to do really well in these sit-ups, more than sort of most places in Sydney. And I think that's really got to do with that really bump of the escarpment at the back of the Georges River there. Um, and yeah, it just helps to sort of, it's almost like the maritime air funnels up that river system and then is lifted over that sort of what's it, 150, maybe 200 meter rise at the most. Maybe I'm just guessing, but it's just enough to give just a very localized orographic effect. And, the results are pretty clear around the place. Normally that area, Menai slash Lucas Heights, is reasonably sort of far enough inland away from the maritime influence. They tend to miss out some of those events, but occasionally this sort of thing comes off from them and they get some great falls, which is what I've had for the last 7 days. And it's probably down, if my geography is going to work for me today. Of course, we've got Cronulla here. It's probably down under the W of Campbelltown there, but, sort of under that, almost at 80 mils, which is pretty impressive fall. So northern beaches again do pretty well. That area, anything east of so that where the escarpment starts to rise there along the sort of Terry Hills down through northern Sydney and the posh areas there. Always in the east does pretty well. Again, there's forced to rise as it comes in, moist. You can have good little stream showers, and of course, then as it hits that escarpment, it tends to dry out slightly. And Port Hornsby is the poorer cousin for it, and then of course the whole area here is the poorer cousin for it. This stuff here is again some orographic effect as that stuff hits the Blue Mountains, and it does tend to sometimes work out for the west. This time it doesn't work out too much on the back of the dam, which is great. Some decent inflows there. And of course, the mayor of Camden did pretty well up there too. So he needs to send through his taxation returns and his base statement for June. Thank you very much. And we'll be seeing him an invoice for those falls we've organised out his way. I'm sure that'll help with some of the grass grow as well. And it is looking a tad milder this week. I mean, milder, I'm saying a couple of degrees, but that will help encourage the grass growing too. So I'm sure he's going to be very excited about that. Hopefully his bursitis that we all heard about last week is starting to clear up for him. That's the week it was really. Like temperatures were cool during the day and warmer during the nights. No surprises there. Don't have to really do much about that. We can all sort of guess that was going to be the case. Cloud cover at night time. Although I mean, we're still in some areas actually the temperatures did actually pretty get down to average, and even dipped a little bit below because we had that really weird setup where even though there was some cloud cover around, because of that upper system coming through and the upper atmosphere has been incredibly cold. And I've been talking about this for a number of weeks now. The number of upper troughs that we've had sliding through is just it's unusual, and it's great, but it's unusual. And it's pity didn't happen in La Nina because we pretty would have had ECL explosions everywhere, to be honest. But that really unusual combination of surface moisture from these sort of onshore sort of trade winds, but that upper cold air subsiding at night time, a bit of a radiational cooling, just enough to get the escaping of that warmth and the decoupling of the temperatures between the surface and that has led some some really chilly temperatures out there in the west. That's been an all round sort of winterish week with cloud, which is unusual. And we all like the older generation all know that normally when you have like this sort of a wintry, so that's cloudy and showery and that stuff, you normally have nighttime temps aren't overly cold, but they're not overly hot either. But it's been like the daytime temps have been cooler and the nighttime temps have been cooler. It's been actually quite pleasant, and hopefully that's satisfied some of the people who are complaining about having no winter, even though it was incredibly delayed. But I'm not sure going to hang around for much longer than this. I think this week it tends to look like it's going to get a bit sort of evened out. But then I think there's another pretty big change coming through. I think late next week we'll have a look at that, which will then drop the temps again. But otherwise, yeah, that's what we got. All right, so let's look at we're going to look at the week ahead, and we're going to look at the weather when, and we're going to look at what's coming for our week this week. So this is Monday. This is from the Bureau's ADFD. I was going to try and use the OCF model, which is supposed to be sort of a blend of all the models coming through, but it was just off with the fairies. It wouldn't actually do any accumulated sort of falls for me. So I'm like, nah, I'll just use the ADFD, and it won't be too far off. The Bureau, to their credit, have been reasonably pretty good this week for rainfalls. In terms of access, has been abysmal pretty rainfall wise, but it's actually been pretty damn good on the temperature wise. I'm actually quite shocked, to be frank. It's actually been outplaying EC and Icon for minimums, and Access C normally struggles with minimums. I don't understand why for such a high resolution models, but it really does struggle for minimums. But this week it's been pretty good. So it's obviously modeling, that decoupling of the atmosphere and that upper cold air sort of subsiding as well at night time better than the overseas mob, which is good. Um, Monday, that sort of light blue in the far sort of on the coast here is very much leftover. I think that'll be like just overnight. I don't think we're going to see anything tomorrow itself. Again, who knows? Now, this is the interesting thing because I'm not sure about this. I think this is there's quite a decent sort of northwest cloud band progged attached with a bit of a upper trough slash low sort of the mismatch of trash we normally see there. I'll look at the weather charts in a minute. I'm not sure we're going to see much out of it. I think I really know we all know take it as read that we always struggle when there's anything coming out of the northwest, just due to that rain shadow effect. And also it's the limited moisture that comes out of the northwest as well. It's not just the rain shadow effect; it's also just that not much to tap into, high base stuff. So it's got a lot of things to work against, and of course, dry air at the surface. Even if it does rain, you got the Verco, it hits that dry air and evaporates, and you get evaporative cooling. So all those things very conspire against really us seeing much out of north cloud bands, unless it's a really atmospheric river that's been dragged right down out of the southern the southern Indian Ocean with a big long wave trough, some sort of Rossby wave coming off the Indian Ocean and pushing across, and that's when we start to get the senses about, oh my god, the ECL may be switching on here, but there's not really that forecast. This seems to be more of a upper level sort of low cutoff sort of type situation, which flashes through. Doesn't have a lot of upper support, so that's why it's sort of going to be here there. But in the meantime, it's going to deliver some pretty good falls in the west, and we'll see that anyway. But turning to our stuff here, I'm not sure we're going to see this on Tuesday, actually, to be honest, and I'm not quite sure if we're going to see this on Wednesday too. I just think Access has been a little bit bullish on this. I'd be surprised if we saw 7.5 to 10 mils anywhere this week, to be fair. But we'll look at the latest models. They should be out very shortly. And you can see this is the biggest, and then this is the biggest red flag for me too, I guess, is that all week the models have been tipping Thursday, sorry, as the change comes Wednesday night. The rain, the showers, if there's going to be any, would be Thursday, and then suddenly, lo and behold, we wake up today, and Thursday is drier than my sense of humor. Like, yeah, it's a red flag to me, and that makes me think, I think Access has been smoking the old greeny stuff, the tomato plants in Mum's backyard, but we'll have a check of that. And Friday, of course, we've got post change gloom. It looks dry there, but there'll be still cloud and sort of maritime air mass around, unfortunately. And that maintains that into the weekend as well. So really overlooking across the week, I would be surprised if we see 15 to 20 mils, to be fair. If we do, I think we'll be all very happy for that to be the end of the first month of winter for June. I still think we'll probably be, decile 5, maybe decile 6, which is, no, probably not that actually, because decile 5's average. Probably more decile, maybe 3.5, decile 4. So we'd like be below average, but not as bad as initially was made out to be for June, which is good. But I think if we see this fall this week, this 15 to 20 mils falls this week, this will actually put quite a few of the western areas pretty close to average actually for June, because and that would be incredibly surprising, to be fair. But stranger things have happened this week. Look at the lightning and small hail reported today. So it is what it is, I guess. All right, so we're going to now pop out, and we'll pop into windy, and just all prepare yourself for its usual conniptions. We're going to have a look at it, see what's coming. We'll keep it broad at first, so we can see just what this pattern is that's it's flagged to give us, this potential, well, more inland system. But I just want to show you the broader picture here. You can see here very clearly. And the key has been, for the last few days, has just been the location of these highs. So you look at the air pressure, and if I was to bring that up again, and I will off screen and bring it back across for you, it's been incredibly high. It's been 1,030. And, when you think about, you think about, rain and showers. Everybody always, oh, I'll cut the chat off, put you back. Rain and showers, everybody always thinks of, lower air pressure. And it's fair. Air rising creates rain. But these advective events too, not convective events, where it's the winds picking up the moisture and dragging it through, and then the winds, they're hitting the coast. And it's not even, you can't really call it a trough because it's really not a trough, but it's like a sort of hybrid sort of ridge trough. It's really these winds are traveling across the waters for a vast distance. They're scooping up this moisture and they're getting to the coast and they're basically screaming to a stop. But when they do that, there's nothing to support them holding that in the air anymore, and they drop it, which is what we've been seeing. And it's not really a trough because the air's not really rising because we've seen the pressures of 1,030. So it's really, that's what you call an advection event, as opposed to a convection or air rising type stuff. It's quite a fascinating sort of setup, and it's actually pretty unusual in terms of what we've seen for winter. Normally we see this subtly sort of come up, drags up with it. If we're lucky, there's a bit of clash in moisture, and you might get a cloud band come through. But this has really been generated, to our east and pushed onshore, but also helped from an upper system coming from the northwest. It's been very complicated. But looking ahead to this week, so we can see here this lower here. I'm actually going to put the gusts on because you can just see it gives a bit more definition about what we're sort of looking at. Probably won't actually do it. Yeah, there we go. So this is EC's take. Don't forget, if we look at GFS, you can see really like it's a polar low, pretty deep polar low, and you can see all that because the winds around the center are quite light, and you can see most of the strongest winds are displaced well away from the actual center of the low, which is a classic cold core low setup. And then you can see just even yourself, you can see this ridge really pushing up. You can see the southeasterly trades pushing way up into the northern hemisphere. And then pushing onto the Queensland coast, you can obviously there's stream showers right along the Queensland coast, which is quite typical for this time of year. But the ridge is but because the high is so far south, unusually south, the winds are getting enough time to scoop up this moisture across the Tasman and get into a bit more of the warmer Tasman Ocean as opposed to the cooler stuff, and then that hooking back towards being sucked into the approaching systems is what's actually helping in create these showers. And you can see here, and as this system starts to approach in the west, you can see the ridge starts to break down very quickly. The high dies and then relocates to New Zealand. Of course, the flow then becomes parallel to the coast and almost a little bit offshore as well, which is basically for clearing up for a couple of days. Now, this is EC's take. You can see here in EC, there's going to be 0 showers on Tuesday. You can see here already, the winds are going offshore. So there's going to be pretty mild northwest to even a bit northerlies there, but most of the activity is well offshore. There's going to be no rain with this. And you can see another system, if you can remember my rule of thumb, which is like if WA is getting hammered, we're missing out. And you can see very clearly that rule of thumb in operation here. Quieter for us, and WA's got a pretty nasty sort of polar low slamming into it. Pretty typical for this time of year. And then you can see EC really doesn't have what Axis is flagging. In fact, the winds stay offshore the whole time. Now, this is the system coming through that I always thought there was going to be rain on Thursday. And the EC's been running with this for a few days. And you can see here really nasty winds picking up sort of Wednesday night as that sort of system does approach. You can see now it's really not a polar as much anymore as it's a very deep sort of polar trough, but it's pretty embedded foot of vortices. But you can see it's quite strong. You can see these unfettered southwesterly winds coming straight out of the depths of hell, pummeling into southern Australia, which is what's going to sort of, and you can see then dragging down the air. Now, this is why I think we're not going to see much rain at all, because you can see the fetch of these winds is quite shallow. There's not a lot of moisture with this because most of it will be filtered out by the south and the south. Can you guess that? You can just call that the south. You can't really call it the southeast, can you? Just the southern coast. And we just sort of get those leftover trashy sort of, and then you can see really finding up after that as that stuff pours through and get that southwesterly dry, and then you get that kick on, southerly return flow at the back of it, and that's quite EC's forecasting quite a typical winter type pattern. And this is where Axis very much deviates unless it sort of changed its mind since I checked it out not long ago, which is not unusual. The first thing you notice, of course, the ridge is still the same, no changes there. And then you just watch this system. It doesn't have that impact that we'll see in the EC does. In fact, it's having no impact. Here we go. It actually dips down. Now, this is the dipping down it's sort of saying it's going to allow a bit better chance of these north cloud band, because you can see what it does here, the dipping down. So you remember EC was fairly further up here, so it was blocking any sort of limited tropical moisture. And I'm not going to say tropical moisture because people automatically think, like mold growing in the air as it flies past type of stuff. But there's enough. If this stuff does pour across the coast and sort of flood down, there's enough moisture that would come down with this. And this is what Axis is saying. You can see just the difference. It actually it peters out before it gets to us, and it actually allows quite a bit of tropical moisture actually to pour right down, right from almost the the Gulf of Carpentaria and the top end right down into this system, which of course creates a very different scenario than what we've shown with EC. And this is the real frustration that's been with the models there. They've just been total trash. And two different scenarios. One, a very dry, classic sort of August, heading into August type scenario, and one more a sort of early season, sort of June sort of cold change. So you can even see here, like the winds never really turn that sort of northerly, northwesterly stuff, which drags that sort of continental air down and destroys any system. So, this is why I think Axis is. I'm not sure about this one. I mean, this will make the resorts quite happy because this will be some decent, good snowfalls for them. But I'm not sure. Anyway, let's have a quick look in. We'll have a look at the rain accumulation as it turns out to the models. We'll go to the whole period. Go through the whole week through to Sunday. You can see here, this is Axis. Now, you can see automatically the disparity between what we just saw in the ADFT model and this. Like, there's no way that there's even close together. So, I don't know. The Bureau may be seeing something in some other models. You can see, obviously, the western side always do incredibly well. 30 mils would be very welcome there. Definitely for me, 3 to 10 mils most. Yeah, totally agree with that. That's pretty the sort of what we see. And EC, pretty much the same. A little bit more generous, but you can see again, everything's focused on the western side. In fact, up to 60 mils, that'd be even better to see. And again, still here, some spillover. The EC does like a little bit more of a spillover effect into the western, which would be great for them as well. But still, falls are generally 5 to sort of 10 mils, maybe the odd 15 mil, but not much at all. GFS is pretty dry, and it's been pretty good with the patterns lately. So this is probably more the likely outcome. This will be sort of more Thursday, I imagine. And then looking at Icon, which is again pretty much mirroring what everything else is. So again, one day of sort of showers this week, but generally it's going to be drier. That's why I just couldn't understand why the ADFD model was going for that Tuesday, Wednesday scenario. I'm like, no, I don't think so. All right, let's have a quick look at the days and as we go into. So we can see here the showers are gone by Monday. And as we head into Tuesday, really nothing. This is an Icon. We probably should look at both models, all models. AC, really nothing there. I think that's left over. I think that's more Wednesday stuff you can see. And then have a look at as we head into what I think Wednesday, it does flag some stuff in the west coming through. And I think that's pretty going to be an overnight thing because you can see then that pushing to Thursday. And then by the time we get to Friday, completely dried up and gone. And then the weekend, drier with a late sort of southerly change Sunday, but I wouldn't expect too much out of it. It's pretty going to be a sort of overnight showery thing, I think, looking at that. In fact, you can see there, yeah, into Monday. And you can see showers definitely pick up Monday as that's pretty rigid southerly coming through. It's going to be chilly. That's probably about it from that perspective. So looking at the week ahead, we're going to pull up this. We're going to go to this really cute new little weather center they've got here, the weather dashboard it's called. Actually quite good. One thing I will say is the temperatures are a bit overcooked, I must say. There's no way it's going to be 23 this week. I don't think so. I think they're really running with that axis scenario of dragging down all that sort of interior continental air, whereas EC doesn't want to have a bar of that so much. I still think pretty maybe high teens. You might get a 20. There's no way. I don't think at this stage we're going to see a 23, but we'll obviously keep an eye on it. And then of course, getting cold for the weekend, shock horror. And you can see here the probabilities. Obviously today was the highest chance, and then it drops off completely. And then Wednesday, so into Thursday, as we just saw, is the highest chance again with 65% of a mil at least. Well, pretty 1 to 5 mils, but the odds fall away pretty quickly after that. And again, you can see here this we talked about last time on the stream. The stream we talked about these waves. That's the physics and the bits and pieces, and the cos and sine waves, bits and pieces like that. You can see the modulation here, or the amplitude. You can see is quite far between, which is quite stable weather. This indicates stable weather, and you get this really quite sort of up and down sort of stuff indicates sort of more unstable weather, which is in fronts and the cooler air. You can see here the amplitude of these is quite sharper than you compare these sort of gradual and then fall away, gradual and fall away. And so obviously winter just sort of returns towards the end of this week. Again, bigger asterisks next to those temps for Wednesday, Thursday. I'm not sure about that, but we'll see. And that's pretty it from the terms what we're looking at for the next week. Let's have a quick look at what CFS is now saying in terms of looking forward. Of course, we've got this and that is that very nicely picked up, that sort of northwest cloud band, if you're going to call it that way, event this week coming up. Nice week there. And then we'll go to the week after, and we can see again that sort of subtly changed. We saw scraping up the coast, but drying out. Shock horror, not surprised then. You can see again the impacts of the Enzo state here, kicking over into El Nino with that huge anomalies across the tropics. And then into the middle of July now, looking fairly average actually, other than sort of this area here, which will no doubt be freaking out the snow resorts, and of course here WA, which is again, that rule of thumb, if it's dead over here, it's busier over here. And I'm not saying it's necessarily busy, but you can see there's some shadings of above average rainfall there for that week. We'll see. It's mid-July. We'll keep a big eye on that, see how CFS goes. And then heading into the end of July, pretty much staying it. You can see here some negative anomalies starting to develop on the coast of Queensland, of course, and that's definitely that Enzo state. Look at those negative anomalies really pushing now right through the Coral Sea. And Southwest WA really getting hammered in July, which of course is sad because this is supposed to be their wet time of year. And as we push into August, you really can see then that dearth of moisture coming through now. There's been 2 weeks at least of Southwest WA being below average, means there's been no moisture being dragged in from the Indian whatsoever. There's been no systems coming through to drag moisture across, and now you can see the consequences for New South Wales. There's no atmospheric moisture piling up against the Great Dividing Range, and there's cloud bands coming through, and of course that dryness coming through. Really not a lot happening there to end of July and the start of August. Pretty much staying flat with that patch of sort of dryness there and staying that way. And well, we want to do it. I think we're at the end of August there, as far as we can go. And that's about it for the outlook for the next few weeks. So not unsurprising and fairly average, actually. If you look at that, there's a couple of patches there. I mean, Southwest WA and I think Victoria, especially central and western Victoria and southeast SA and Tassie, are looking at some drier weeks, which is a bit annoying for not annoying. It's terrible for the ski resorts because obviously employs people for a start. Man-made snow. There's not a lot of moisture in the air too, so hopefully got their dams pumped up, ready to go. So not a good season for them, but it doesn't mean it's all over too, because we all know that these things can bounce back very quickly. Sort of in August when you can get a decent cold front through, and they get a meter of snow overnight. So, but not looking good for them for a period of time. All right, and that is it. We're going to hop into our weekly WTAFs, and I've got an absolute classic for you today. And it's from our good old friends again. I just could not resist this because this is. I mean, you thought that Facebook post was pretty good the other week. We talked about. Wait till you get a load of this one. This is from our good friends at Brisbane Weather. And this is their, if you recall, we've gone through a range of hyperbole to describe this El Nino, and the meter is just as bad. And of course, many other sites are just as bad, from a super El Nino to, the El Nino by death. We've got Nero El Nino, I don't know, Mussolini El Nino, what are some butchers of the past. A hyper El Nino. This really concerns me from a whole range of things. First of all, it's pure clickbait. There's no such term even in the weather community as hyper. You might have a hyper local forecast, but that's not necessarily meaning what these guys are meaning. And the actual context of using hyper and when in terms of a climate driver is just I'm not going to be And Sunday evening, I'm going to be a bit more gracious, but I mean, it's just baloney. You can forgive the media sometimes from using things like super and strong, for example, because they are generally descriptors we use often in the weather community because that's what the human psyche can connect with. There is no context that the human psyche can ever connect with a hyper on it. I mean, what is it? Is it run around? Does it need some ADHD medication? Does it, need Adderall or whatever the Americans call it? Like, do we need to put it in some toddler, restraints? And I mean, hyper El Nino. I mean, what a load of freaking baloney. And it gets worse. And I'm going to make it louder because how can I not share this with the world? Because this is just absolute scientific less bull crap I've ever seen. Um, but we can see here, unprecedented. Well, unprecedented is an oft overused word and statistically problematic given that we have a limited data range for our climate. And who's to say this is unprecedented? It's just baloney. Um, one model, one cherry picked model, one model out of all, and mind you, this ECMWF is not their climate model because it doesn't come out till the first, so it's not out till this week. I've shown you this, you know that from a fact week. I tell you about this all the time. The official climate models come out. The Nowhere uses EC for that other than the Europeans, and they don't issue their stuff until the first of every month. The Americans obviously use CFS and other models. They don't use EC at all in their stuff, and they haven't called it a hyper or whatever it is. I mean, this is just cherry picking at its finest. It's one run. It's got a, oh my God, plus 4.1. Let's throw that out there. I'm surprised we haven't got the repeated, or we'll get to it, maybe the batteries and the radios. I mean, what the hell? Unprecedented. Smashes 97, 98, whatever. Hyper El Nino. No modern precedent. I mean, this should be flagged for misinformation, but anyway. Global background warming, SEQ impacts amplified beyond anything recorded. I mean, that is absolute effing bullshit. I'm glad I flagged this episode tonight. It's not safe for kids because if I drop an F-bomb tonight, you can understand why. That is just absolute trash. Now, there's not saying that we might not see a value of these. I'm not saying that all but we don't know yet. No reliable model goes out that far in terms of what it says. You've seen it. I've given you the evidence of where they've been every week. They've fluctuated in actual terms of what the temperature is going to be. Anybody who goes and puts a value on it like that is only focused on clickbait and getting the hypersensitive I'm so angry and so annoyed. I can't even think of that. But inflame this to prick on the vulnerable, to get them, fearful. So to then make them follow the page, of course, with religious vigor. And it makes me freaking annoyed and angry. Anyway, and you can see, I mean, even the graph's so angry, the temperatures now are merged into the headers, which is a real OCD annoyance of mine. And of course, we use the really glowy red for often visual, psychosymmetric impacts, subconscious impacts. People see that, oh my God, it's just terrible. I mean, far out. I mean, I really hope that you guys listen to this because if you are listening, Dave, you are absolutely irresponsible. You do not know science. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. You've plucked this out of thin air, and you should really hang your head in shame. And you should delete this off the internet because this is just fear mongering at its finest. It's clickbait, and it's just all about you driving up your revenue from Facebook and driving more subscribers. That's all it's about. You have zero care about anybody who subscribes to your page by posting trash like this. And I am calling you out. I don't care. You might have 10 times more followers than me. I don't give two Fs. People know quality when they see it. We'll just leave it at that. And I mean, historic, look at this. Peak, critical, historic. I mean, breathe. Direct SEQ impacts, catastrophic risk, unprecedented heat, severe drought, rainfall 50%, 90% below normal. I mean, July to December, you've just seen the rainfall outlooks there. Did you see anyone see 90% below there? Nope. I just, I just shake my head. So anyway, that is the absolute trash called Brisbane weather. I'm calling you out because on the internet you've posted it. This is ain't naming. This is not naming and shaming. This is actually just a factual reflection of what's out there. You posted this. It's on your page. It's your trash. You got to own this. This is absolute BS. And there's not saying that these things may come about, but there's no way we're going to have unprecedented heat or severe drought or catastrophic fire, bushfire risks in July through to the start of December. It's just not going to happen at this stage. Even the bureau is not even warning for that. You know, they're talking about summer. Like it's just this is just it's it's outrageous. It's dangerous. It's creating fear out there, unnecessary fear. It is, yeah, it's only about you putting coin in your pocket. You have zero care about the community. I mean, what purpose would this serve putting this far out before an El Nino event? What purpose? You cannot argue this is in good faith. This is going to help people prepare. It's 6 months away. How is Mrs. Betty Boo in downtown Southeast Queensland going to do anything today that's going to prepare her for something that happens, you know, at the end of spring or maybe at the start of summer? Nothing, not one thing on this document we see here is helping her or helping anybody prepare for an El Nino. Nothing. This is only about you and your drive for clickbait revenue. It's revolting. And if I can reject it in the strongest terms possible, absolutely, it's trash. It is trash, trash, trash. And you should really delete it off the internet. It's nothing but just, oh, okay, done before I get my blood pressure up. This is just far out. I can't say anymore. Um, it makes me so mad. It makes me so angry that the people put out this stuff and they're not called out. The media love it because it gives them click headlines. We wonder why we are where we are today with all of the stuff going on. And meanwhile, in the background, our Australian government attempts to even bring in more social media restrictions very quietly behind the scenes. And this is this crap that, you know, they use as a example. You know, well, we kind of have this sort of stuff, you know, out there scaring the masses. So in order to protect the kids, we're going to restrict even more stuff. And it's baloney. Sorry, that is my rant for today. Well, that's our weather WTAF, and you can imagine that's definitely a WTAF. All right, let's get to some of your questions before I go and have a Bex and lie down. In fact, I might even go and raid the Valium. I not that I have Valium, but it's a imaginary Valium because I think I need an imaginary Valium. In fact, maybe an imaginary Valium box tonight. And this is just so far, so trash, just trash. It is absolute trash, Mr. Dave. Whatever your last name is, I don't particularly care for you or what you've done here, but you really need to rethink about why your page exists. Because at this stage, that is not uh, helping the community. It's not helping anybody other than you put stuff into your pockets. Okay, so I'll put the radio in the background here. Radar, you can see it actually. It's just that stuff. The ridge is starting to sort of take effect. You can see the showers automatically backing out already, which is interesting images while I've been rabbiting on. All right, let's go questions, and we will go and let you get away. It's night time. Yeah, let's go. Hello, Mr. Sharp. Hello, Rachel. Lovely to see you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Well, thank you so much again for looking after everybody. If you're there, I can't see your name, but I'm sure you're there somewhere. Hello, Barry. Lovely to see you. Thank you for your message of the week. I do apologize for not getting back to you straight away sometimes. I've had a lot going on in my personal life for a long time now, and I am having time out from social media to look after my mental health, so I can look after my better halves. Great to hear the video and sound is good. It is definitely a damp and miserable, but yeah, it's been a great day to stay home and just actually chill for me, like stick in front of the heater, which unfortunately I had to sell 3 organs just to pay for the electricity bill. Jumper off. I'm actually wearing trackies, hoodie, thermals under it, plus the best looking slippers you've ever seen, plus socks to try and keep warm. It is cold. Hello, Mr. Brayley. Lovely to see you. Thank you for popping by, and I hope you got some of the wetness. Mr. Sharp, I think it'll actually be not too bad this week for mowing stuff. Other than that Thursday, so Wednesday, Thursday night. But I think mostly Wednesday night will be the stuff. So I know you got a. I think you said you got a spraying gig on Wednesday. Yeah, timing's going to be problematic. I know, but I'm not sure. I think it might be okay. But Thursday it might be a few showers, and it may not be heavy, so it may not even disturb your spraying thing. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure how long it takes for your spray to set. That's the thing you've got to think about from in terms of business. If it only takes like an hour or two to get into and have an effect, you should be okay. But you need a good 12-hour period for it to soak in. Could be questionable. Um. Uh, Hello, I go camping. Lovely to see you. I actually was going to message you during this week, and chat to you about how my infatuation with Claude is going. But I just, as I said, I had a pretty hectic week, I must say. And then work is now floating around more of the redundancy stuff as the economy is starting to tank and really affect everybody. And I hope everybody out there is you doing okay because it's just not good at all. So it's been a very, very challenging week. And I'm just like come to the conclusion, well, whatever happens, happens. Like it is what it is. Me trying to put a plan in place, whatever it is, it's not going to just change anything. So just deal with that when it happens. Um, Hello, Mr. Naz or Ms. Naz. I'm not sure. I don't want to misgender you, but lovely to see you. Thank you so much for popping by. Um, yeah, they are definitely smoking some of that green ganja stuff. I don't understand why they could do that. Mr. Preston, lovely to see you. I hope you are fabulous. All right, well, there's not many questions now, which is good. That's I love to see. That means everybody's got their shiz sorted. All right, well, we're going to clock off and go and camp in front of the heater and try and defrost. It'll continue to stay warm. It's still quite chilly. Still some showers on up here. We heard that in the stream before. They actually have backed off. I don't know. They're just the radar's gone into a bit of a quieter. Maybe it's not as red as it was looking before. Maybe it's different. Maybe I turn that one on. Yeah, it's probably a different attitude. When I pop into it, I'll have a quick look at the plane. You can see another band moving in. Actually go a bit closer. You can see these bands will be quite frequent for the next few hours, but you can see the space between them now is starting to really pace out, which means that the impacts of stuff is starting to wane, and you can see not many are pushing into the west. So I'm sorry about that. But that's what it is. So the coast can enjoy a few more millimeters for the next few hours, but I think overnight, even late tonight, we'll start to see these start to ease off and become few and far between. All right, well, that is it. I hope you all have a fantastic week. Obviously, if anything update changes, you'll hear from us. I hope your bursitis is doing better, Mr. Man. Hope everybody else is doing well and your families are well and you're staying warm. And have a great week. Thank you for your company yet again. And stay kind to each other. Good night.